The Idol episode Tree, and in episode 2 I had laid out some fears that we were now going to fully be in the Tedros show. And with the way this episode opens, I wasn't necessarily wrong. We watch as Leia takes Tedros and Jocelyn to go shopping, and then while they're driving, Tedros decides to show Jocelyn how much of a cunning linguist he is, you know? I guess props for him doing what so many men say they won't do, and hey guys, get on that. Not different, you're not special. And then we watch as the Tedros show proceeds, where they go into this Valentino store. You just see Tedros antics where basically they're hooking up in the dressing room. They're trying various things. Tedros says that Jocelyn does not have any taste, and I find that very funny because look at Tedros's outfit and his ever prominent rat tail. I thought that was funny that he was saying that. But then I also want to say that there's a weird thing going on in this scene where Jocelyn, and I think this is just an inconsistency in her character, she's standing up for herself now. She has little moments where when they're hooking up, Tedros is trying to complete inside, that's how I'm gonna phrase it, and she pushes back against him, which is interesting. I mean, a little too late, you should have been pushing back episodes ago. But she pushes back on him, which then just leads to this scene with Tedros that is pretty pathetic in the dressing room. And while this is going down, Leia, I don't quite know how to say her name. To be honest, I just want to call her Rachel because that's the actress' actual name. She ends up calling Destiny and Haim to basically let them know that Tedros has been slowly taking the house over, and we see various antics, one in particular, which I'm not in disagreement with Tedros here, but you basically see this scene where Jocelyn's cook, Andros, starts to caress her stomach, but just listen to the way this sounds.
So much better.
Wow.
Right?
Your body's just so tight. You look amazing.
Andres!
And I hate the fact that the show makes me be on Tedros' side in this instance, but as the scene goes, it's just really inappropriate, but also it makes me go, could the writer not find something more subtle to do, because it's so over the top in a certain way that you can't help but kind of be on Tedros' side in this instance. But there becomes like another running theme with Tedros, which is the fact that, hey, WEEKND, you're not really that intimidating. Yes, I know he slaps this guy. Yeah, I know he tries to mean mug Leia, and then in the Valentino store tries to intimidate the brother who's in there helping them pick out these Valentino clothes.
Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm sorry,
Let
I'm
me
not
fucking catch you looking at her again. I'll fucking drag you down Rodeo while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry.
I'll fucking curb stomp you.
But Tedros is just not intimidating as a character. I'm sorry. The WEEKND, I've never realized this about him. He's not particularly tall. He has quite a light voice, and he's just not scary, which I don't know if that's on purpose necessarily. I'm pretty sure it's not. I mean, as much as the WEEKND wants to try to say that everything with the Tedros character is deliberate, I'm not quite buying that. And then we have it where when they come back from this shopping spree, Haim and Destiny are waiting for them. And you're thinking okay, the cavalry's here, Leia's called them in, they're gonna, put Tedros in his place, but they don't. But part of the reason they don't feels very inconsistent. They basically are kind of trying to point out that Tedros is a phony, and Tedros does not do a particularly good job of covering up. I particularly like the way Destiny is just not being very subtle about the fact that they're on to him.
So I was kicked out of school too. The similarities,
You
man.
got kicked out of high school?
I got kicked out of high school.
Why?
Beating fake ass bitches' asses.
But then they back down because Tedros says he's going to help Jocelyn make hit songs. 3 hit songs in 2 weeks, but I'm confused by why they would think he could do the hit songs, because in the previous episode, we heard the remix that Jocelyn did with Tedros, and no one seemed to particularly like it. But all of a sudden now, he's the hitmaker guy, enough to the point where they leave, not helping Leia. They walk out saying they think Tedros is a great guy, and go back into the car and say, our girl's in trouble. But I find it interesting because your girl's in trouble, but not in enough trouble for y'all to step in and kick this Tedros guy out. I'm just kind of confused by that. And then we have another scene where basically he's taken over Jocelyn's career at this point. He's talking to Xander, but I know Xander as Troye Sivan. Little side note, Troye Sivan actually has some pretty solid pop songs. I got into him a couple of years ago, and he turns out that he's not a bad actor, but basically Tedros uses the tactics that he tends to use with people, with his flattering them. But he flatters Xander for the fact that Xander's idea as Jocelyn's, I guess, like marketing person is to take the Pop-Tart glazed picture of Jocelyn that was leaked in episode 1 and make it the cover of her album. I kind of see the strategy there, but also at the same time, I don't think so. I don't think that's really the greatest plan, but Tedros loves it, of course, because he's a slime ball. And then it leads to an interesting scene where Jocelyn is down in the recording studio with Tedros's little, group of musicians. It starts to reveal itself that Tedros is very much running this group of people like a cult, where the character of Isaac just asks her to sing with him, and she says no. And then they mention how if Tedros heard her say no, that she would be in trouble. And then it leads to this sort of interesting discussion where basically Tedros has imbued this philosophy into these group of people that is basically they can't say no because any experience, good or bad, could lead to art. And then they try to bring up this story with Led Zeppelin and Robert Plant about how when he lost his 5-year-old son, he wrote this song and it's one of the greatest songs ever, and that it helped a bunch of people. And they try to peddle this logic that Robert Plant basically losing his son was worth it because he made this song that helped a bunch of people, which Jocelyn pushes back on, which once again, where's this like spirit that's coming from Jocelyn of her being able to push back now? I would have liked to see this episodes ago. This seems just kind of out of nowhere because she let this rat-tailed man just slip into her life with little to no resistance. And so we're kind of seeing that, yeah, Tedros is imbuing these people with this certain philosophy that is very troubling. I think if you're familiar with any sort of art, there's this like archetype of like the tortured artist, where some people are saying like I can only make good art when I'm sad or not feeling well, which, through the teachings of CJ the XI and also my own life, I have started to disagree with that quite a bit. But then it leads to a scene which I think is the best scene of this episode, and a moment that makes the show frustrating because there's these little glimpses of something more interesting going on, where basically they have this big dinner scene, everybody's there, Isaac, Leia, Xander, Tedros is at the head of the table, he's a narcissist, he's a cult leader. And Jocelyn's there, and Jocelyn stands up and basically says, like, I see y'all as my new family, because she's very broken. She lost her mom. Her team around her is, I don't know what they're really doing. Is probably a victim of inconsistent writing. And then they get to a place where in an earlier scene, Jocelyn had revealed to the girl Chloe, I'm gonna call her Piano Girl Chloe, that she had lost her mom and that she feels lost without her mom. And so at this table dinner scene, it is revealed that Tedros wants Jocelyn to, open up about this situation. But before that, he has Xander tell her what his marketing idea was of using the Pop-Tart glazed photo of her as her album cover, and she resists that, saying, I don't really want to do that. I want to be taken seriously as an artist. And Tedros is sort of prodding and saying, why do you want to be taken seriously? And then, and then there's another moment of her pushing back, basically saying like, hey, why are you talking to me like I'm not a veteran in this industry? I'm the veteran, not you. Which, hey, true point.
Great.
And then, Tedros starts to poke and reveal that, what Jocelyn had basically revealed to Chloe about the troubled relationship with her mother. And he uses this to sort of drive a wedge between Jocelyn and Leia and Xander, probably her two closest friends, by getting her to open up to the place where she revealed that her mom was physically abusing her. That her mom would take this hairbrush that we've seen in various episodes and physically abuse Jocelyn, hit her all over her body, and that Xander and Leia knew, but they didn't do anything, which I'm sure there's some context missing there. I mean, it's not totally forgivable. I'm sure a big part of it was the fact that they were getting paid, probably by the mom to a certain extent, to be around Jocelyn, which, you know, reveals an ever-growing theme in this show, the fact that money will make you put your morals aside. But the way Tedros is doing it is particularly manipulative. And then the show, first of all, I want to say this dinner scene is probably the best scene of this episode, and I think it does show something about the tendency of Sam Levinson and the Weeknd, where they think the really interesting stuff is the shocking stuff, the sexual stuff, gross stuff, but it's telling to me that the best scene in this episode is just characters sitting down and talking to each other and letting actors act. Because I think the performances are pretty solid. There's some tension going on here. But basically the scene culminates where Tedros, being the slime ball that he is, after hearing Jocelyn reveal that she misses the abuse that she would get from her mom, and, you know, that it gave her drive, that she feels that without it, she is lacking the ability to make art that is compelling. And so Tedros, being the monster that he is, orders Leia to be taken to bed by Isaac, and then asks Jocelyn, do you still have this hairbrush? And then if she does, go and get it. So this is particularly troubling because you basically have it where this character is revealing that she misses the physical abuse that her mom would do to her, and that where this scene is about to go now is that it ends in this montage where Tedros is reenacting the abuse that Jocelyn had, because he asked her, do you think that if you were to have this abuse reenacted on you, that it would be worth it if your music was good? And she says yes. And then he takes advantage of it and starts to physically abuse her in this artsy montage. And I don't know, that just feels really, it just feels gross in a certain way, because it's not as if in art and in a show you can't have it where you're talking about sensitive subjects like this, but because of the way the Idol has been treating stuff like this, and because of its tendency to be exploitative, if you're going to talk about something like this, something that is fairly serious, you know, people are physically abused, especially by parental figures, you should not be coming at it from the angle of shock. That feels irresponsible and exploitative. And then another note I'm going to say that makes it, and this is a little bit more of a note where it's like, it's just like a circumstantial thing to a certain extent, which is, hey, The Weeknd, outside of the context of the show, he is a pop star. He's probably one of the biggest artists in the world. And during this montage of this abuse being reenacted on Jocelyn, they have a Weeknd song playing. And I don't know how about y'all, but it felt odd, because when you have The Weeknd playing a Weeknd-esque pop song over this montage of physical abuse being reenacted, it does a weird thing where it undercuts the sort of seriousness of what's going on, because now your brain is doing this game of, well, I'm hearing The Weeknd's music, and this seems like it would almost be a Weeknd music video, and it undercuts the seriousness of, you have this person reenacting an abusive relationship, in particular a physically abusive relationship. And I don't know, that just feels weird. It feels off. It felt gross. I don't particularly like that. And also, I think the show is starting to reveal this pattern in its 3 episodes of, every episode of this show so far seems to have the pattern of whatever the most shocking segment is going to be is always going to come at the end of the episode. And that's not necessarily bad writing, right? Hey, if you're making a drama, it's well known to have cliffhangers, end on something big and dramatic to make viewers want to come back. And it's not like Sam Levinson has not done this before. If you've watched Euphoria, he's done it. But you can tell in particular with this show, whatever skill that he was using in Euphoria to end those episodes on a shocker and not have it feel like a pattern, that's not present in this show. That it is clearly a pattern of, we're just going to end every episode with something shocking. And yeah, I don't know. We're about halfway through the season now, and I don't really feel like much has been achieved. Like, this episode just basically ends with The Weeknd Tedros taking care of Jocelyn and bathing her, and then Jocelyn basically thanking him for taking care of her.
Thank you for taking care of me.
And look, I know that with art, you don't want it to be super blunt and in your face and moralistic in certain ways, but I don't know, with the way this show has been so exploitative already, it does feel irresponsible and gross and weird. But yeah, that is the Idol episode Tree. Let me know what y'all thought about this ending, and if you felt a similar effect of having a Weeknd music pop song play over disturbing imagery, and if it feels like it's kind of odd and disrespectful. And I will talk to y'all in the next episode. Mahalo.